All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be chatting with an individual who competes at Final Resolution, and that goes down on December the 9th, and going down in Mississauga, Ontario at Don Kolov Arena as Josh Alexander and Zack Sabre Jr. take on the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin, and great having Chris on the show for the first time. How's your day going there, man?
It's going good. Just got back from Mexico yesterday. Impact had a joint show with AAA down in Monterey a couple days ago, so just resting, recovering from that.
I was going to say, you're used to tag teaming with champions, it seems. I saw you were tagging with Trinity on that event, and usually, obviously, like I said, from the top tagging with Alex Shelley, so it seems like you always have those championship partners there.
Yeah, it's nice. I enjoy tag team wrestling. It's really enjoyable to me, even though I'm a singles champion. And, singles wrestling is cool too, but tag team wrestling is really fun. You can be really creative in tag team matches, so.
And so much to talk about with this match coming up, but one of the things I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on right from the beginning, just with this being the final live show, specifically under that Impact Wrestling banner, and then, reviving the TNA name. I saw you had the post where you were quite excited, but just curious to get your thoughts on just, the name change and just your thoughts on all of that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it generated a lot of excitement. I know there's a lot of excitement in the locker room and in the office for Impact/TNA. Now we're kind of like in this limbo name, right? It's kind of Impact and TNA both at the same time right now. But yeah, everyone has still referred to it as TNA. Fans have still chanted TNA at shows. I know examples like some people remember TNA as opposed to Impact Wrestling. Like, I'll be crossing the border or something coming into Canada. Like, who do you wrestle for? Like, Impact Wrestling. Do you remember TNA? Like, oh, yeah, I remember TNA. It was, Spike TV back in the day, blah, blah, stuff like that. So I think we have a lot more well-known identity under the TNA name, and I think that's going to, hopefully help us bring back some of those fans that watched a lot back in the day that maybe don't watch now, maybe, grab their attention and hopefully bring them back.
Yeah, and I feel like you would have such a unique perspective on that, just being that on and off for sure, but have been with TNA for, 20 some odd years, with your first X title win being like May 23rd, or May 2003 rather. So, a lot of lineage there and everything like that for sure. And just relatively recently cementing yourself in the history books yet again. You already held that distinction before, but just, the 10-time X Division champion. So I think that speaks volumes to the legacy as well, man.
I know. I was kind of upset with myself because I beat my own record. But, now it's cool. Anytime you could do something in pro wrestling that's, like, unique and history-making, that's, it's really cool to be able to do that. That doesn't happen often, so being able to cement a legacy like that is very, very cool.
And I feel like I'd, really be curious to get your thoughts on this. I feel like you'd kind of have an interesting perspective, because in some of the interviews I was checking out you've done previously, it seems like you're quite the avid gamer, like into Final Fantasy and certain things of that persuasion. Like, how cool was it to have been in some of those like TNA games over the years? Because it seemed like you got a few different chances to kind of, appear in those games. That must have been cool.
Yeah, for sure. That was like a huge accomplishment just to be in a video game. Alex Shelley and I think it was 2009, 2010, but TNA sent us out to San Diego for the Comic-Con to help promote the game. And that was really cool. So it led to, like, being able to do cool things like that. I remember I ended up getting sick, actually, from the buffet. So that wasn't fun, but everything else about it was really cool. But yeah, being part of a video game, that's awesome. And, hopefully that happens again in the future.
I was going to say, what got you the buffet, do you know?
No, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we figured it out at the time because Alex and I both ate all of the same items except for one thing, and I can't remember what it was, but had to be that. And then, the next day we actually had to fly to, where was it? Chicago. Yeah, we had to fly and wrestle Tyler Black and Jimmy Jacobs in a tag team match the next day. So that was a fun weekend.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of fun had, and a lot more fun to be had in the career. I guess kind of tying it into the, Final Resolution lineage. I always thoroughly enjoyed the Final Resolution 2005 Ultimate X match. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Nathan Young, a bit ago, and that was one of the matches we were, kind of watching, just kind of like checking out matches we enjoyed, and stuff like that. Is that one of those matches that you find, I guess, people reference to you a lot in terms of, I guess, being like sentimental or having that sort of great replay value and all? I mean, if not, though, I mean, would there be another match that kind of fits that description, I guess?
Yeah, that was me, Petey, and AJ. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the triple threat one. Yeah, no, I think that's probably my favorite X Division match. Or I'm sorry, Ultimate X match. And I've had many of them. I can't remember. I lost count at some point, but it's either 18, 19. It's around there. It's around 20 Ultimate X matches that I've done in my entire career. So that was my favorite. I thought that one told the best story, and it was just like the best match out of all of them. So that I've been a part of anyway. So yeah, I mean, people still talk about it to this day, and I see when they still post clips online of it that it still gets good attention and all that. So yeah, I would say that one's definitely my favorite.
And that's the thing too, because you have a legacy and I guess a couple sort of permutations of wrestling. Like the X Division legacy is, remarkable and pronounced for sure. But another interview I was seeing where you were kind of talking about your 20 years with Impact, you were also like, oh yeah, like the Motor City Machine Guns winning the titles and that Best of 5 series against Beer Money. So cool that you have, I guess, similar matches in that like different permutation of wrestling too, like in as far as like favorites or ones people really keep mentioning to you, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Singles matches, the tag team matches. Yeah, I've been able to do it all. And it's just cool to be able to work in a company for so long and create so many memories, and that some of those memories people still talk about to this day. So that just, create a long-lasting legacy. That's absolutely cool. And hopefully people still talk about them long into the future.
Yeah, and it seems like you have moments that, I mean, obviously you're motivated, but everyone has like, I guess, different lulls now and again, but it seems like just even taking like a brief moment to like kind of think of the legacy or just the way social media works, sometimes things will kind of pop up that I guess rekindle a certain feeling. I guess the thing I'm referencing is like I saw you retweet the Jeff Hardy Full Metal Mayhem match a bit ago. So I mean, probably in a career where you're always looking at like the next thing and being so goal oriented, it must be interesting to kind of, I guess, reflect on those things and have those brief sort of moments, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. It's really good to be grateful and, look back at everything you've done and just, have like a positive outlook on it. Wrestling Jeff Hardy, like that, for example, right? And I was almost like, not that I forgot I wrestled Jeff Hardy. Of course, it was always back. I just haven't thought about it in a while. So when that popped up and I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah, man. That was really cool that I was able to do that. Just even wrestling Jeff Hardy was cool to me because he's one of those guys that I watched before I got into wrestling. I was a fan of. Of course, I was in the late '90s. It'd be hard to find a wrestling fan that didn't imitate Jeff Hardy in some way. Especially if they were like a backyard wrestler like I was myself. He was definitely one of the guys I imitated. So to go a full circle. Moment like that to be able to wrestle him at Impact in the main event in a match like that, a match that he's kind of known for. Yeah, man, it's good to reflect and, be grateful that I've been able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and wrestling is fun because there's like so many, I guess, like tendrils of inspiration almost. Like just, I mean, we're talking about you working with Jeff Hardy, but I mean, seeing certain guys like, perhaps Leo Rush or even Trey Miguel, like some of these guys you're kind of working with, like maybe they look at you in that kind of way and it's like that cool moment for them. So just cool rather to see these different, I guess, tendrils of inspiration and wrestling and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like wrestling Jeff Hardy, a guy who inspired me. And, I'll have this sometimes, some people will say they watch me growing up, kind of ages me, makes me feel a little old, yeah, brings me back to reality a little bit, but, that's extremely cool. But it is weird to hear sometimes, like, there's kids nowadays that are in the wrestling business. They're like 18, 19 years old. I started when I was 18, when I was young. So that's a normal thing. But I've been wrestling for 23 years now. So I've been wrestling longer than some of these kids that are wrestling nowadays have been alive. So just kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And also it seems like there's a lot of, I guess, strong localized connections, at least like the connections to Canada. Like it seems like you kind of cut your teeth earlier on in like that, Windsor, Ontario and sort of like adjacent area with BCW. So I mean imagine you enjoy wrestling all over, like you were talking about wrestling in Mexico and kind of getting back from that. But is there a certain almost like kinship or connectivity to Canada just because, like I said, kind of sort of laid the groundwork for the career almost, and as far as like getting to cut your teeth in some of the earlier matches and all?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been mistaken for a Canadian many, many times. But, I mean, I live an hour from the border. I live right next to Canada, and Canada has been a huge part of my career. Like just going over to training at the Can-Am Wrestling School in Windsor. And like you said, early on when I was working only independents, I was working on the whole Ontario scene and all that. But that's one of the good things about living in the Detroit area. It's a really good central location as far as wrestling goes, because there's a lot of shows in Ontario. You can go to like Toronto and Chatham and Mississauga and all those areas. There's a lot of wrestling over there, but at the same time, you're within driving distance to like Chicago and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Louisville. It's just a good central location. But yeah, Canada's been a huge part of my career. I'm super grateful for all the experience that I gained in Canada.
A lot of good road trip memories with P.D. Williams, jamming some 90s alt rock and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure, listening to Mitch Hedberg, yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go. But yeah, even more specifically, like the Don Kolov Arena, it seems like that's always been, or at least in the last like few years, like a great venue for Impact. I saw some TV tapings there, and just such a great vibe to it, like just real frenetic, almost like tangible kind of energy. And TNA going there like a bit earlier in the month with like the Impact Provincial Wrestling Federation. So like, what are your thoughts on just like the arena, like getting to, kind of compete in it, readying for December 9th and all?
No, I like it. I like wrestling there. We just did the IPWF show that was not TNA. Obviously it's a different kind of show. It's more of like fun, lighthearted kind of thing that we did. But I've wrestled there before for Destiny Wrestling, I believe, and this was during the pandemic. And one of the things I like about that building, first of all, it's just a cool building because they run all sorts of MMA and wrestling classes there. There's gym, weightlifting, all this stuff. It's a very cool facility, and it's like one of those more smaller, like intimate type crowds. You know what I mean? I really like that. As long as the crowd is energetic, I kind of like the smaller arenas like that because it just feels more intimate, more like you can connect with the fans on a different kind of level as opposed to a giant arena. So that's one thing I appreciate about that building. And it's just a nice building. It's a cool facility. The locker rooms are nice. They're always very welcoming of us there. So
that's kind of cool. Maybe I misconstrued what you were kind of saying there, but is like the MMA training part of it something you were into, like in as far as like, are you a fan of mixed martial arts? Do you follow it a bit?
Not particularly. I just think it's like a cool facility because it's just like this combat sports facility where they have all these classes, I don't think it's just MMA. I think they also have like jiu-jitsu classes and all sorts, and they do pro wrestling training there too. I just thought that was like just a cool theme for a building and a facility to have. But no, I'm not a huge MMA guy myself, no.
No, that's fair. I get what you mean though. Lends itself to the vibe. And just speaking of the atmosphere and I guess some of the machinations of this matchup, because Josh Alexander, someone that you and Alex Shelley both have a level of familiarity with, but then Zack Sabre Jr. coming in and, kind of bringing that, presence and stuff like that in his own sort of unique style. Like, what are your thoughts on both Alexander and Sabre Jr.? Because I feel like a lot of people regard them as some of the better, I guess, like technical wrestlers on the planet, and just, matches up well with, Motor City Machine Guns being, how excellent you guys are and whatnot. So I guess, like, what are your thoughts on both Alexander and Sabre Jr. as opponents coming up here at Final Resolution?
Well, I mean, I think you pretty much said it right there. They're considered two of the best technical wrestlers in the world, and I agree with that for sure. They absolutely are. I'm excited to have Zack Sabre Jr. in Impact. I've never been able to wrestle him, actually, so I'd wanted to for a very long time. I'm glad I'm going to have that opportunity on December 9th. But, Josh is Mr. Impact, Mr. TNA. He's the guy. And, what can I say about him? His career speaks for itself. He's the longest reigning TNA Impact champion of all time. That right there is such an amazing accomplishment, especially looking back at the lineage of that title, what he's been able to do. So, I have nothing but the highest amount of respect for both of those two. They're amazing wrestlers. I think the Motor City Machine Gun style will mix well because Alex and I, we cut our teeth learning every single style of wrestling, not just technical, but every single style of wrestling. So I know that adaptation is one of our strengths, and I know we're going to be able to adapt to whatever Zack Sabre Jr. and Josh bring.
Yeah, for sure. I get where you're coming from. And I guess one of the last things that I wanted to touch on while I had you, because I was seeing that you've been doing some agenting work for a few years now. I'm wondering how much, if at all, like that role informs what you've done as a performer. Like, does it add a certain extra something to your perspective? Does it broaden it at all? Or are they, I guess, like compartmentalized, separate things more so?
No, it definitely broadens my view on wrestling. Just, it's another point of view. It's another perspective on wrestling that I get just sitting, at the desk with the headset on and hearing the directors and the producers and everyone talking and the communication that goes on. I'm not sure if wrestlers, can completely appreciate that happens besides the wrestling, everything in the backstage and as far as the production goes. So just being able to hear that and, how much work goes into that and the difficulties and everything when it comes to everything in backstage, that just gave me a whole new point of view on wrestling. It makes me appreciate what the production has to do and their job a lot more. So, and also I'm helping other people's matches. So maybe some matches, if I might be busy putting together my match, I'm helping some younger guys with their match or whatever. And that's another perspective because, sometimes they present problems in their match or they'll come up to you and ask you a question. You're like, and you're forced to think and try to help problem solve with them. So, anything like that where you're learning more, it's always better.
Yeah, I love hearing that, and you've had such a great career. I'm sure I could ask you 100 questions, but I want to be mindful of your time. I'm sure you have a few things on the go there, man. So I guess in saying that, I'm wondering if maybe you have a final parting thought you'd want to add as we're sort of wrapping up here, man.
I would say, I have an X/Twitter account. I can promote that at Super Chris Sabin. That's my only social media. I do not have Instagram or anything else like that, although I pondered getting an Instagram several times, but I never did. So if you want to reach me, I'll be at Super Chris Sabin if you want to follow me on social media. Coming up, we got Final Resolution December 9th. And then after that, we're heading full force into the new year under the new banner, TNA Wrestling. January 13th, Hard to Kill on pay-per-view from Las Vegas, Nevada. That's going to be an amazing show. First one under the TNA Wrestling banner. And so that should be great. Then the next day, we got another taping, the 14th, called Snake Eyes. And that will be a TV taping the day after Hard to Kill. So if you're around, please join us. Please order the pay-per-view. And please continue to support TNA Wrestling.
So many exciting things on the horizon, and super appreciate all of the great perspectives, Chris. So thanks so much for the time. Looking forward to seeing this match coming up, and also you have a great rest of your day, man. Thank you.
You do the same. Thank you.